So I think, well, we have a quorum. So we have Mike, Josh, Steve, Debbie, and myself. So that's 5 plus Gordon, our esteemed guest, which we'll do introductions in a moment. And Montana, who we need to do introductions to. So we're now being recorded. It is 7:34. I'm going to officially begin the Alternative Energy Committee meeting for the town of Cohasset. In accordance with Massachusetts law, we are able to meet in accordance with open meeting laws remotely, and that is what this meeting is doing via Zoom. And we have Montana, who is representing the town of Cohasset, who is managing the session, and we are being recorded. So I want to welcome everybody who's here, but I'd also like to take a moment to go around and do introductions. I'm Tanya Bodell. I'm the chair of the Alternative Energy Committee. Montana, can we start with you? Would you mind?
Yes.
We have Montana Castle. Tell us about yourself, your new role, and why we have the pleasure of having you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Montana Castle. This is my first month as the town's new resiliency and grant coordinator. So I will be helping the town on current and future sustainability environmental projects, helping you guys write grants. For example, we have a few topics tonight that hopefully I'll be helping you find some money for in the future. I'm very eager to help you guys. Also, a little background about myself. I am born and raised in Cohasset. I graduated from Cohasset High School, so I'm very happy to be giving back to the community that kind of nurtured my interest for climate change and the environment and whatnot. But yes, and then tonight, I'm sorry that it says Michelle Leary, so I'll be running the meeting, but I am Montana Castle. It's nice to meet all of you. I know I've seen some of your faces before, but thank you for inviting me here tonight.
And I'm going to let everybody else introduce themselves first, and we'll finish up with you, Gordon, if that's okay. But I also want to say that I worked a little bit with Montana when she was on the green team at Cohasset High School, working, and she had basically pulled together everything to get water bottle fillers installed at the school. And she had the money, she had the funding, she had the interest, she had the plan. And all I had to do was introduce her to the select board, and she presented. And this is why we now have water bottle fillers in the high school, thanks to Montana. So just a small example of what she was doing when she was under 18 and the great things that she's going to be able to do with us going forward. So we're very excited to have her on our team.
Thank you, Tanya.
You're welcome, Montana. Okay, so if the other members of the Alternative Energy Committee could introduce yourselves, and then we'll have Gordon introduce himself. He's our guest for this meeting.
Oh, okay, I'll go. I'm Steve Wenner, long-term member of Alternative Energy. I also met Montana when she presented some of the work with the green team and her work on the water bottle project. She made a dynamite presentation at the Sustainable South Shore Forum years ago, and it was wonderful.
Debbie, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Debbie Cook. I'm a relatively recent member of the AEC. And Montana, we talked the other night. And anyway, I've been pretty involved with many different projects around Town Hall for many, many years, but I'm happy to be on the Alternative Energy Committee now.
Yes, I can go. Hi, Montana, welcome, and Gordon as well. My name's Josh. I'm Josh Staunton. I've been on for about a year, so still learning from these experienced, passionate folks here on the team, but look forward to working together.
And Mike Schmidt.
Mike Schmidt, member of the Alternative Energy Committee. I've been on, I guess it's about 3 years now. Welcome, Montana.
Yeah, and Mike's being humble. He actually has deep experience and expertise in the electricity industry.
Thank you, Tanya.
And we love having you on. And currently works for the Hall Municipal Light Plant and previously worked for nuclear power plant. And I think that is all of the members of the Alternative Energy Committee. Gordon, introduce yourselves.
Great, thank you. So apologies if you don't understand the accent. It's because I haven't got an accent and everyone else has. I think that's how it works. Formerly from the UK, I've been in Cohasset for 6 years. Our elder daughter has just graduated from high school. We've got another one going through currently in junior. I'm a civil engineer by background, 10 years as a civil engineer, but really for 20 years, I've been doing organizational improvement or business change, whichever you prefer, in Network Rail in the UK, and then Network Rail out here, and then MBTA here, and now Amtrak here. So civil engineer, interested in planning, and I think it's about time after 30 years as a civil engineer that I actually diverted my attention to the world's greatest problem and actually give some solutions if I can, help where I can, and then hand over the planet to my daughters in a better way than I found it.
Excellent.
Thank you for letting me gate crash.
No, it's open meetings, and Gordon reached, just so for everybody else's background, Gordon reached out to me via email and said, I noticed we have the Alternative Energy Committee and that he has a passion for renewables and expertise in the civil engineering area, and he was interested in learning more about how to join. And I said, well, why don't you join our meeting? And if you're interested, we could talk about next steps. One of the things, Gordon, we've been thinking about is electricity and energy and the environment and energy efficiency, and the things that we're working on are so specialized that even though we don't officially have associate members, we feel like we should have associate members. So we may unofficially have associate members because the membership is appointed every year around June. And so we're halfway through this term, and but by sitting in and helping out, you definitely start to learn. So once you are brought on, you can hit the ground running. Perfect. All right, we're moving on to the approval of the meeting minutes. And sorry, I'll just say Gordon and Montana too, because this is your first meeting. The agenda, and I know Montana, you've done some homework on what we've been doing, but this will give a very good flavor of the type of work that we do and how we just keep trying to usher things along. This committee only has the authority of recommendations. We don't set policy, but we do go to the select board quarterly, explain what we'd propose we should be focused on, and then they give us approval to go forth and do that. And they've been very, they've been very accommodating to our suggestions. So even though we don't officially set policy, we definitely can help influence it with our recommendations. And so what you're going to hear about today is examples of some of the key initiatives that we're undertaking. And what I'll do also is, if you haven't already gone onto our website and looked at some of the meeting minutes, I'll forward you some of our presentations to the select board so that you can see what our mission statement is, who's on the committee, and what we do. Okay, so on to the approval of the meeting minutes. We do not have October, but we're going to soon. And I guess, Debbie, do you have access to the recording, or is that what's?
Yeah, the day
challenge?
before our last meeting, and then Thanksgiving got in there after 5 requests. So I'm yes.
All right, well, Montana's here now, so it will take half a request before we get it turned around quickly. But we do have the November 10th meeting minutes, and Debbie is our scribe, our clerk, our secretary, and she's amazing at keeping the minutes. So I did circulate that this morning, the November 10th, 2022 meeting minutes from last month, and hopefully we can take a moment to just refresh our minds on what happened at the last meeting, and then I would entertain a motion to approve the November 10th, 2022 meeting minutes when somebody is ready.
I'll move that we accept the minutes.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
I have to abstain. I wasn't around.
Okay. I will second. So we need to do a roll call vote because we are, well, first of all, is there any discussion? All right, we need to do a roll call vote because we're virtual. Tanya Bodell, aye.
Debbie
Steve Winter,
Cook,
aye.
aye. Debbie Cook, aye.
And then Josh, why don't you and Mike each abstain, because I think you weren't at the
Oh.
last meeting.
I'll abstain. Thanks.
And Mike Schmidt.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Mike Schmidt, abstain.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you. Okay, so the November 10th meeting minutes are approved with 3 yays and 2 abstentions. The next is the Massachusetts DOER Specialized Net Zero Stretch Building Code. This is on the agenda per the request of Steve Wenner. And just for everybody's benefit, anytime you'd like to put something on the agenda, just send me an email and we can make it happen. So Steve, do you want to talk to us about
Sure.
Specialized Net Zero Stretch Building Code?
All right. So this has been a long process. The Department of Energy Resources have been working on this for at least a couple of years. They've had several public hearings that I've been to, and I've also attended some webinars on the topic. So they finalized it in September, I believe it was, and on December the 24th, the day before Christmas, towns will be able to adopt the stretch code, the specialized stretch code. So I want to say a few words about it because I'm hoping that Cohasset will decide to adopt the stretch code, and I'm also hoping that Alternative Energy Committee might want to be the sponsor of it. It will have to be an article to go before town meeting so that the residents of town will get a chance, voters of town will get a chance to vote on it. So at the moment, there are two building codes for residential and commercial structures. There's the basic code, the base code, and then there's the stretch code. And of course, Cohasset is following the stretch code because we are a green community, and green communities are obligated to abide by the stretch code. Now, both those codes are being updated, but there's going to be a third code. There's a third code called the specialized stretch code, otherwise known as the net zero code. So that's the one that I hope that we'll adopt. The updated stretch code, the regular stretch code, will be automatically have to follow, even though, with no action whatsoever. But because we're a green community, we'll automatically be obligated to follow that code. But the specialized stretch code is an opt-in, which will require a town meeting vote. So it's a little bit complicated what this code says. I'll try to summarize it very briefly, and if we decide we want to get into this, we'll have to have an expert come and brief us on it, I think, and then figure out how to disseminate the details to the right people in town. The net zero code provides 3 pathways to achieving net zero in new construction and major renovations, both commercial and residential buildings. So a builder or contractor has to decide which, if they're obligated to follow the code, they have to decide which of these 3 pathways. So the first pathway is the zero energy pathway. Now, what this means is that the building will have a PV array on the roof that will offset any energy consumption of the building. It will be a wash as far as the energy consumed is. The energy generated will beat the energy consumed. And also the building will be required to satisfy a rather stiff efficiency requirement. It's called the HERS rating. HERS stands for House Energy Rating Score. And so that score is set at various levels for these various pathways. So that's the first pathway. The second pathway is the all electric pathway. So this means there'll be no fossil fuel consumption in the building at all, but all the heating and cooling and the hot water and other utilities will all be electrical. And it will not be required that they have a PV on the roof, as long as you have everything electrical. The idea is that our electrical grid in Massachusetts is becoming increasingly green, and by 2050 it'll be net zero electricity. So that's how the house, the building will achieve net zero. And then the third pathway, which is controversial, is a mixed fuel pathway. So with that path, a builder can actually still install fossil fuel equipment, a gas furnace, say. But if they're going to do this, they have to make the house even more efficient. That's a more rigid HERS criteria that they have to satisfy. And also they have to make it all electric ready. So they have to make sure that the electrical service of the house is beefed up enough that it could handle the extra load if it went all electric in the future. And in addition, it needs to have a PV array on the roof, if at all possible, unless the house is just totally shaded and doesn't make any sense. So those are the requirements for a mixed fuel pathway to net zero. Now, the climate activist community was quite unhappy with this third pathway. And there was a lot of effort put forth to change the Department of Energy Resources mind about this, but that effort was ultimately unsuccessful. However, at one presentation I went to by officials of the Department of Energy Resources, they pointed out that with the incentives, the Massachusetts incentives for green energy, heat pumps and so forth, that it wouldn't make any financial sense for a builder to opt for this mixed fuel pathway anyways. It would be cheaper for them to go for all electric construction or the net zero option. So, or I mean the zero energy option, one of the first two pathways. It wouldn't make any sense for them to put in fossil fuel equipment to begin with. But they recognize that nevertheless, well, I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for why they did this. So those are the three options in a nutshell. So the details are complicated. But anyways, any questions about that? Not that I'm an expert, but yeah, Debbie.
So, I mean, this is all for new construction you're talking about, but.
Or major renovations.
Or major renovations. So then, let's say you're doing like a 20 or 30% new renovation. So what do you have to do to the major part of you? Do you have to do things to the major part of your house? Or
I'm not sure where the break point, I'm not sure how they define a major renovation. Sorry, we'll have to get the experts to answer that question. But of course, you realize that there are all sorts of incentives. In fact, at a meeting I chaired a couple nights ago, I made a list of the incentives from both the state with the new climate bill that was passed last spring and with the Inflation Reduction Act bills from the federal government. There's many thousands of dollars available to everyone, especially lower income people, to be able to upgrade their present homes with heat pumps and like solar hot water and induction stoves and everything. So it's financially a lot easier for somebody in an existing home to retrofit to an all electric house, say, than it was a year ago because of these new incentives. But has nothing to do with the building code.
I think if we do have a discussion on this, it would be good to hear from the building department. I guess it would be the building inspector, electrical inspector, just to hear what their thoughts are on it.
Yep, right. I was hoping maybe we could schedule a informational meeting and invite somebody from the Department of Energy Resources, if they can come, or someone else, some other expert that we can get to get into the details a little bit more than I'm able to do. And at this meeting, have the town officials involved in building codes and so forth attend.
Do you think we should do like a forum or just do a guest speaker at an upcoming meeting?
A forum. Well, of course, if we and Alternative Energy Committee decide to sponsor this as a article on the Springtown meeting, then we'll have to have public forums and invite the whole public and have, it'll be a big deal. But I don't think we need a forum like format just for us to make a decision whether we want to proceed with this as a project or not. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think we can't proceed unless the select board says we should proceed. So I think it might be useful to do some preliminary
Well,
research.
can't we decide something and make a recommendation to the select board? I mean, they won't know anything about it until we educate them.
No, I know, but normally what we like to do is go to them and say, for 2023, here are the things that we're going to focus on. We'd like to focus on the initiatives, number one, and we could say one of those is look at the new net zero stretch building code, understand the pros and cons, understand if this is doable, have discussions about it, have people who are more knowledgeable come speak with us, do some exploration, and then come back to you with a recommendation.
Let's see. As a practical matter, let's see. How could we do this? Could we make it part of the next quarterly presentation that you have to the select board, or what?
Yeah, I mean, we like to do it, we could do one in January and just say, let's talk about what we accomplished in 2022 and what we look to accomplish in 2023. Well, we call them
That'd be great.
initiatives.
Okay. And as part of this, should we have like a very brief presentation of what the net zero building code is all about? Maybe just a little bit more detail than what I just gave you.
I think we can decide on that. I think part of it is when do we get on their agenda? Because we have the special town meeting is on Monday. Right, just so everybody knows. If you weren't planning on going, we don't have anything. Well, actually, we do have some items coming up, but it would be nice to have members of the Alternative Energy Committee there. And if we're not going to be in discussion, then we don't have to officially call a meeting for the Alternative Energy Committee, but we should discuss that at the end of the meeting, what we want to do about the special town meeting. I think I'd almost rather do less, Steve, just to come to them and say, this has come out in December. We'd like to explore it, because they generally won't say no, right? They like to make informed votes. So if we just come to them and say, this was just passed as a third code in December, and the Alternative Energy Committee would like to know more, and it's clearly in our mission, and we'd like to do more research on this and come back to you with a recommendation on how to proceed. I think we'd pretty much get a yes.
Okay.
Unless you think if you want to do,
I just remember last time we tried to get, we've got a article for before town meeting, and it's a long process and lots of steps, and you have to make many presentations to many town boards and so forth. And I'm just a little bit concerned about scheduling this and getting everything done in time to get on the warrant for the next town meeting.
I think it's probably unlikely, knowing how slowly this town operates.
Well,
Steve,
we
I
did it
think
before for all the Alternative Energy Committee refurbishment, what we call it. We got on in less time than this.
But
Steve,
that,
can I
go
just
ahead,
say,
Debbie.
I think that, knowing Cohasset and knowing a lot of people who especially want to do some big renovations, there's going to be a lot of questions. And I think we have to have, really have a lot of preliminary research about, especially how it for pre-existing homes, how you put this in effect. And I have a million questions myself about it. So I think it's something that probably we would think might be a whole year or more before we could do it. But, I think it's like everything, you have to kind of make sure you've got everybody's questions answered before we try to, go forward on it, I think.
I agree. There's
So-
going to be some pushback. And I think that's why one of the things that would be helpful, I think, from a context standpoint is I'm not sure where we are with the carbon assessment, the baseline for the town, but I think once we get that done, we're going to realize obviously buildings are going to be the biggest usage of energy. And if we're actually trying to come up with a plan to get to whatever net zero, reduced by 50%, whatever our goal is, doing the code is going to be an important part of that. I think we need to identify the problem, quantify the problem, and then say, this is why we need to do it. So I'm not sure where, if anyone's heard anything, and maybe Montana can look into it, just that the grant for doing the baseline. I don't know.
Well, we'll talk about that further
Well,
down.
On the topic of the code here, I don't see any problem with the Alternative Energy Committee looking into anything, investigating, learning, educating ourselves about anything. That's our mandate, is to learn about stuff. I don't think we need to ask the select board for permission to learn about the net zero
Right.
code. We can have a guest come in and educate ourselves on it, just like we had guests come in and educate ourselves about many other things. We don't have to, go before a select board to say, will you let us learn about this? That doesn't make any sense.
No, it's about socializing, right? This is being passed in December. It's giving them a heads up that this is being passed, and it's something we'd like to do further exploration on to understand what it means.
Sorry
Oh,
to
yeah,
interrupt.
yeah. But I
Corey
mean, we
has
can
a-
just tell them that we're educating ourselves on this.
Yeah, I know, but Steve, we as a committee only have authority from the select board. That's why we do quarterly meetings. So we can go off and do whatever we want, but if we haven't tried to socialize it and get a blessing in advance, we run the risk of looking like we're going rogue, and that doesn't help anybody. So it's just a question of socializing it. And look, I don't anticipate, hey, Corey, I'm glad you've arrived. Corey Evans, welcome. Your hand is raised. Is this about the stretch code?
Yeah, and I was just going to, I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to just give, just for procedural, and I've run into this before, but, obviously boards and committees have kind of different lanes, and this would really be a planning board lane. So from the select board side, I mean, if it's a bylaw or it's going to be building code change, the select board really isn't the proper expertise board. I think if you went to planning and you had the planning board buy-in, you obviously want to loop them in the beginning, because they're going to be a huge resource, and you'll have to work with Lauren. You'll have to work with their whole department to really draft something together. If you get in on the ground level, I guess staying in the building analogy, the success will be faster. So I would recommend, if this is something that AEC wants to do, maybe go to planning first with just hey, because a lot of people on planning board may already know about this, a lot about it too. And they could give you some direction. And then you come back to select board and say, this is our 2023 goal. Planning board is involved, and we just want to be sure you've got our blessing. I think that would be the best way to proceed.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I think, again, sticking in our lane, there is some overlap with the planning board on this. And especially if we start moving towards a net zero goal, which is not the case right now, we would clearly take the lead on anything net zero climate action, a climate action plan. That's squarely in the Alternative Energy Committee bailiwick. So, going to what Josh said, if there's a bigger context that's squarely within our lane, that gives us that much more authority and consistency with our mission statement to pursue it. So I guess for next step, Steve, do you think we should create an initial subcommittee? Is it premature to create a subcommittee? Would you like to take the lead in reaching out to the planning committee? What do you think would be the next steps?
I think based on Corey's thoughts there, that we should contact the planning board and committee and see if we can't get maybe like you were suggesting, a forum, perhaps. Maybe we can get a forum, combined forum of alternative energy and the planning board, and have a presenter explain this code to both of us at the same time and have a discussion about it.
Okay, so do you know people on the planning committee?
I don't personally. I don't know who's on. Does somebody here have personal relationship with anyone on the planning
Well,
board?
yeah, I mean, I think Tom Callahan is on it.
Oh, Tom is on it? Oh, yeah, I know Tom. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
In
Clark
fact,
Brewer.
I've had
but
several
before-
email exchanges with Tom
Could
today
I just-
about it, actually.
Go
could-
ahead,
could I
Debbie.
just- I would really like if you know somebody, Steve, who would just come to a meeting and give us a briefing about this. You know, just kind of really explain a little bit more about it before we start working on it. So that, because I feel like it seems premature to start going and talking to different groups until we are pretty well versed in what's going on. And
Well, that was my first
especially-
thought. Yeah, my first thought was we should educate ourselves, but
Yes,
Corey is suggesting that we get
I think what Corey's
planning
suggesting.
people involved.
Yeah, I think what Corey's suggesting, Steve, is that we should reach out. Now, it turns out there's another reason we should do that anyway. But that we should reach out to the planning board and just say, you may or may not be aware that this net zero stretch code is going to be active and an option starting in December of 2022. And we would like to learn more. And we think your planning board also would like to learn more because this is squarely in your lane and there's a little overlap with what we do. So would you like us to move forward with trying to pull somebody in who knows about this, and then we can do a joint committee meeting, alternative energy committee and planning board, to understand more about this net zero stretch code?
And so our next act, you're suggesting that we try to plan this joint meeting with the planning board?
No,
And-
the next step would be to reach out to the planning board. So if you're talking to Tom Callahan,
Well, yeah,
Corey Brewer,
Yeah.
just reach out and say,
John, Tom suggested I speak to John Halen. Who's John Halen?
John Halland, he's the building inspector. So,
Oh, he's a
Yeah.
building inspector. Okay.
yeah, the question is, you know, I think beginning with the conversation with Tom Callahan is perfect to say, this is on your radar. Is it also on the planning board's radar? You know, if it is on your radar, let's work together. If not, maybe AEC does a little bit of legwork to get it ready for that. When it does come on the radar, you guys have, you know, a good handle of the policy, because we don't know yet if planning has it on their radar, if it's a priority for them. So
Well,
just do a check-in would be good.
I can just tell you what Tom told me today when I was talking to him about it. First of all, he's supportive. I mentioned this to him and he was not objecting to the idea at all. He seemed supportive, but he's involved with the zoning board now and they're trying to get some stuff done and that's taking up most of his time. So he says he doesn't have time to drive this forward. But and that's when he suggested I talked to the building inspector about it.
but I also think Clark Brewer, and from that forum we went to, it was clear
Yes.
Clark is very, very in tune with this.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's definitely on his radar screen, so he might be the one to, because I think he was very invested in it, and being an
Yeah.
architect himself, you know, that as opposed to Tom, who's an attorney.
Yeah.
So maybe we talk with Clark and see about doing some sort of a joint meeting, but I think
Well,
Clark is more
well,
knowledgeable.
hold-
Debbie,
on.
you want to talk to Clark and I'll try to see if I can find somebody who can make a presentation about it
Yeah,
I'll try to
talk Clark.
contact Clean Energy Center or the Department of Energy Resources and see if they have any staff that can talk to us. And if not, I can find somebody, you know, I've attended some webinars on the topic. I should be able to scrounge up somebody.
Sure.
Okay, let's, so there's a couple of intersections that we have with the planning board. And I think that this is a good time because we're talking about this. Debbie, you and Steve went to the forum that they were hosting.
Yeah.
Right.
And in addition, Tom Callahan has reached out to me and sent me a draft of a revised set of bylaws pertaining to wind and solar. And he'd like
Oh, I
us
didn't
to
know
take,
about that. Oh,
I
that's
No,
know.
they
interesting.
didn't mention it at the forum.
yeah, he'd like us to take a lead on it from a technical point of view. So I think there's just a lot of intersections right now happening with the planning board. Tom Callahan is the chair. So Steve, I'm very glad that you've talked to him about it. What I think I'd like to do is just let him know we've got 3 intersections happening and that we should maybe consider having a joint meeting and having somebody, a joint meeting where we can talk about all 3 of these things,
Okay, so
including a speaker.
how do we go about organizing this now?
Okay, so let's figure out the action items at the end, because I guess what I wanted to add was Tom has reached out to me and sent me a draft of revisions to the wind and solar bylaws. As we all know, those bylaws were created to comply with the requirements of the Green Communities Act, but not the spirit of the Green Communities Act, which was to create
Yeah.
as of right siting. So they recognize that, and town council said you need to expand this a little bit more. So I think this is now on our agenda from a technical point of view. It is not coming before the town in December, as it should not, since it's a special town meeting, but they would like to get it before the town in the spring. So that is something we would be looking at in 2023, assuming this committee is okay with that. Then in addition, Steve and Debbie, you attended the forum. Could you share a little bit about what happened on Monday with the forum? What was that about? What were they
Go ahead,
discussing?
Debbie.
Well, I think it was actually a lot more about things like flooding and FEMA and things like that. So it was really more about, you know, sea level rise and mostly that. Clark did address a little bit about the stretch codes, and I do feel, knowing him, he's probably very tuned into all of these. So he did make the presentation on that. But as I said, there was no mention of wind or solar at all. It was basically, you know, more FEMA and flooding, right, Steve? And
Right.
you
It
know,
was
and
basically about
overlays of maps of
resilience and how
protected-
Cohasset
yeah,
can protect
resilience.
itself against
Yeah.
future flooding. Right.
right.
And Montana, that's your center of activity. Do you have anything to comment on the forum?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mention this before and I should have. Most of my energy will be going towards the harbor. No pun intended. I will help you guys when I can, obviously. But the forum was definitely geared towards Little Harbor and Margin Street, Margin Court, the Elm Court or Elm Street corridor. And I believe I'm getting last night the Harbor Committee and Monday night confused, but they were also talking about Atlantica, or Debbie, was that last
No.
night, the Harbor Committee?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, well, and then, yeah, Clark Brewer talked a lot about building codes and just how to make infrastructure more resilient going into the future. There is the first presenter focused heavily on just the general scope of becoming resilient for the town, and just heat waves and droughts and just how sea level rise is going to increase heavily. But again, it was much more directed towards the harbor and flooding. I honestly don't remember much about energy or wind, solar, or anything being mentioned during that meeting.
No, nothing.
I asked Lauren and Cassandra for those PowerPoints and that recording. So once I get my hands on those, I can forward all that to you guys too, so you can see it in more in depth.
Okay, well, I think, so then let's do this. We will need to get on the agenda and present ideally in early January to the select board what we want to do for 2023. I'm going to try to arrange that to be after our January meeting, so that at our January meeting on our agenda, we can talk about priorities for 2023. So that we can be in agreement that these are things we want to pursue. I will in the interim reach out to Tom. It's nice to know, Steve, that you and he have already established a good rapport, but I will reach out to him chair to chair and say, we are intersecting quite a bit between our committees, and you have a specific ask for our committee to review from a technical point of view, the proposed changes to the bylaws associated with wind and solar. Let's talk about whether we think we should do a joint meeting to introduce that and make it an official request, as opposed to, an email with a redlined version, just to keep it consistent with open meeting laws. So I will coordinate with him on these intersections that we are now having, which is threefold. First of all is the new net zero stretch code. Second is the initiatives that they're taking related to environmental impact, climate impact. And the third is with respect to the solar and wind bylaws. Does that make sense? And then it may be that we agree that this warrants a joint alternative energy committee planning committee meeting to walk through all of these and what the intersection is and have some discussion. And then we can go off, in our own little corners and do the work and then come back together again when we have some final recommendations. But I think communicating with that committee to make sure we know who's in which lane, where we intersect, and how we're going to work together is going to be important for 2023. Does that make sense? And Steve, as part of that, during that first joint meeting, I would recommend to him that on the net zero stretch code, we have somebody else come in and present on that.
Yeah, I wonder if we could, is it possible to tie down a date for that? Because if I'm going to talk to people about, try to round up a speaker, I should be prepared to give them a date or a couple of.
Well, I think just talk generally about mid-January.
Okay.
For now. And then we'll try to, if he, I just don't know if he's in agreement. I can't get a date right now, but if we talk about it, we can try to get a date where we could do a joint meeting.
Well, I'll try to make some phone calls tomorrow or whatever and see if I can't, introduce the idea to a couple of people, try to see who might be able to be a speaker.
Okay. All right, Corey, does that, not to put you on the spot because I know you're on mute and you've taken your camera off, but does that sound like an appropriate approach?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to eat some dinner. Yeah, it does. I think that makes a lot of sense. How you laid it out, Tanya, and a next meeting, because it's probably on their radar too. So yeah, that seems to make sense.
Okay, and Gordon Williams, just so you know, Corey Evans is one of our select board members, and he is our liaison. And he is a great advocate, and he's a great help for us when we try to get things done, as well as guidance on how to get things done. And you're going to have so much fun, Gordon, and seeing how a small New England town actually does get things done. And sometimes it's very glacial.
Sometimes very frustrating.
I'm not sure I should build on the metaphor and let the glacier melt, but never mind. Corey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Gordon. AEC, I always say, is one of the most a very fun committee. I like, all the topic is fun, and so I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy it.
Thank you.
Tanya, what were the three intersections? I got the stretch code. I got the wind and solar. What was the third?
So there's the stretch code, the wind and solar, and then these forum for bylaws that they've been moving forward on, tied to reliability, resiliency, and other things.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
they're having a number of fora, and the Monday, one on Monday is an example that seemed to have the most intersection with us, but it was generally tied to climate change and resiliency, which is not our focus, although there's intersection.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, so that's our action item. And I think that's a good approach. And I think that kills three birds with one stone, if you would, and we'll just be that much more efficient, ideally, by being able to work together on that. Okay, great. The next community choice aggregation subcommittee update. So Debbie and Steve, if you can talk about where community choice aggregation currently is. Montana, you may have an update on that as well. And then I believe Debbie, we have always known as a committee who has proposed this program that we would be on the hook for the success as well as failure of the program, and that there was a significant role for marketing that we as a committee said we would make sure happened so that the town would be informed with respect to community aggregation. So I guess why don't we start, Steve and Debbie, if you can give an update, Montana give an update, and then Debbie, I believe you've prepared a marketing summary of what's required under the Massachusetts laws.
Okay, let me go first and I'll hand it over to Debbie to talk about the marketing plan. But you probably know that the bid meeting is going to be next Wednesday. The bids are coming back, and hopefully Chris will be prepared to sign on the dotted line if the bids are good. Chris and Michelle were invited to that bid meeting, but not myself or Debbie. Let's see. Oh, so on the marketing, the Department of Public Utilities specifies a minimum amount of had minimum requirements for the outreach, and Good Energy has always indicated that they can pretty much handle that with some just some supportive help from town administration, and little or no necessity for alternative energy to participate. However, that's not what we, Debbie, I want to do. We want to have an aggressive outreach program that will guarantee a big success, and we would like to also encourage people to opt up to the 100% renewable energy option. So we want to do much more than the minimum required by DPU. So anyways, with that intro, I'll pass it over to Debbie.
Okay, actually, before Debbie starts it on marketing, Montana, do you have an update on this? Because we are not, we're trying to stay in the loop on this, but as Steve indicated, there was a meeting with Michelle and Chris Senior, and we were not invited to join. And I think Steve had asked to join. So do you know what the status is of the bidding and what the next steps are? I believe the November bidding was canceled, but now there's going to be a December bidding.
Yeah. So bidding, I apologize, it's quite little information for what you probably want. I know the bidding's going to occur on the 13th and the 14th, and Michelle will be on the bidding. That's all I have as of right now. I do have 2 emails that I can just take like a printed copy of what Michelle gave me this afternoon. I can take a picture and email it to all of you after this meeting.
Okay, and that will be public record. So I'm assuming what she has is public. But that email is public and there's no problem.
I believe so. I'll double check with her before I send it out, but yeah.
Okay, and then I believe the select board has to approve it under our plan. So once the bid comes in, there's a very quick turnaround time, but the select board is the one who ultimately determines whether or not it's favorable. Steve, do you remember that part of the language?
Did the select board delegate that authority to Chris and Michelle now? I guess it would be.
I do not have any further information from what I was just told this afternoon. I apologize.
Because there's not going to be a time to call together the select board. Chris is going to have, or Michelle is going to have to sign sign the contract that afternoon, Wednesday afternoon.
Okay, well, how are they gonna know if it's favorable or not favorable if?
That's what the meeting, they're gonna meet in the morning and then the signing in the afternoon is my understanding.
No, but I'm just saying. They're not energy experts. They don't know energy price. How are they
They
gonna
have to
know?
rely on the advice of our broker, I
Right,
guess.
that's the way it's set up. It's the same day thing. The bids are brought in. Good Energy will advise as to whether they think they're a good deal or not. And Chris is, I think, is the authorized signature on that, and he will sign off on that very day. It's done all in the same day, which will be the 14th. The 13th is the pre-bid the pre-bid meeting where they're going to lay out everything and talk about what they expect the bids are going to come in at, but they're still not going to know until the exact bids until the next day, the way I understand it. And
Okay,
they
Corey,
sign off in the afternoon.
I'd say even
Corey-
if they were energy market experts, I think they'd be pretty hesitant to make any decisions the way the energy markets are right now. I mean, if you look at your national grid bill, we went from 28 cents to 43 cents just December
Yeah.
1st.
Now, let me give a little bit of background. There was a bid scheduled for a month ago. And at the last minute, Good Energy pulled the plug. And then they had a meeting where they explained to us why they did that. Turns out that there was it's complicated. Turns out there was a power plant in Mystic that announced that they were closing. And that threw the whole energy market in disarray in New England. And the details escape me a little bit is exactly why, but that was the root cause. And so they postponed the bid for a month. And also they're changing the term of the contract from 3 years to, what was it? 6 to 8 months, something like that.
Right. Very, very short term.
Very short contract with the hope that then they would have to get a new bid at the end of this short term and hopefully the markets will settle down, be less volatile, and then set in a longer term contract, maybe 3 years after that. But that's going to cause us a problem next fall, maybe. But good, I talked to John O'Rourke at Good Energy, and he assured me it's not going to be a problem.
well,
But
what's
anyways,
not going to be a
some of
problem?
the details there.
Sorry, Steve, what's not going to be a problem?
The fact that we have to have a new bid contract next fall.
Which means
So
notification.
At the end of
everybody.
the short-term contract that we're going to be signing,
Yeah,
hopefully on next Wednesday.
which will mean a lot of the process of not the entire marketing program, but the way I understand it, obviously it'll be a new letters, new postcards of, opting in and all that, will have to be done again. But they figured, if the way I understand it, if they did it within what they know is the time frame of Eversource and National Grid, they know their rates, so they were going to do this, I think, right, Steve, within that known time frame, that and then basically go back out, I guess, when they're going back out for new pricing.
I guess, of course, they're working with, they have, I think that's basically correct. The point is that the market is a little bit unstable right now, and the energy suppliers were not willing to offer long-term contracts now because they were too nervous about the state of the market right now. They were only willing to lock in a contract for 8 months or something. So that's why the term is so short. It's because the energy suppliers are not willing to commit for a longer period of time right now. But they expect they will be able to commit, 10 months from now. So.
And I'm assuming John believes he's going to get a price that's less than the default supply price.
Oh yeah, they seem kind of optimistic that they're going to be getting a decent price right now.
Okay, that would be, I mean, that, look, I think that would be great. That would be a great service that we
If
could
they
provide.
can't get a decent price, then obviously we're not gonna go forward
Right.
at
Who?
this time.
Okay, I hope that the people making this decision for the town know what a decent price is and can make an informed decision about whether or not to move forward at this time.
Well, I
Wow.
think they'll have a lot of discussion the day before, and I think I mean, it's all 6 towns are going together on all this.
Yes,
So,
this bid meeting will be for representatives of all 6 towns. Good energy towns that, you know, we all submitted our plans at the same time and we all got our approval at the same time. And we're all getting our bids at the same time with the same broker. And the meeting is with everybody, all 6 towns together.
but
Okay.
each one of us can choose whether to go.
Yeah, right. We don't have
forward or
to,
not.
you know, go along with the
Individually.
crowd, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying that all the information will be presented to all 6 towns at the same time in the same meeting. And hear the same recommendation from Good Energy.
Okay, Corey, your hand's up.
Yeah, I just concerned timing is just terrible, right? Because of town meeting and everything that's going on. I know the town staff has been worked really end to end on a lot of stuff. So some concerns about all, just the ability to make that good decision. But my question was, and I was trying to rack my brain, but I know we've had affirmative votes on this process. Have we had an affirmative vote on you know, allowing Mr. Senior to engage in this? I couldn't remember specifics, and I was going to ask you, Tanya, if you remembered if the board has. I know we've approved going for it, and town meeting approved going for it, but I didn't know if that was enough to make this action happen.
Right, so the plan has one more set of approvals written in the plan
Right.
from the select board.
Right.
And what I don't know is if there's an official
Right.
vote in the record by the select board to delegate that to the town manager. Then this is what Steve and Debbie believe is the case. But and most certainly Chris and Michelle are acting like they have that authority, but I don't know.
Well, I did ask that question of Tom O'Rourke of Good Energy, and he said, yes, Chris is prepared to sign that day.
I know, but
I will-
Steve, that's not the question. The
Yeah, I
question
know, but
is,
I'm saying Good Energy thinks that, yeah. And my recollection is that the select board delegated that responsibility, that authority to Chris. And it would be now Michelle also, why, since she's co-counsel.
I'll follow up with that. I don't have a clear memory on that, so I'll follow up, and that way we all
That's
know.
a very, very important thing to get straight here.
Well,
But one of
absolutely.
the things, you know, that they say, I think you can only have one designated person who is prepared that day to sign.
Okay, then that
So
would be
it's not
Chris.
like you go through the Board of Selectmen. And also, I think, if we don't take it that day, I don't know when we get to, I don't know if they'll go out again for us separately, if we don't do it.
let's be clear. One person signing is different than a select board approval. And our plan, unlike other plans, has that additional step, which is that the select board determines whether or not the bids that were received are reasonable and should be approved. That is in our plan.
Yeah, I'm wondering, what does the signing actually mean? Is that a firm and binding legal requirement that Cohasset is going forward with it? Or is that just, saying, okay, it's, I'll sign, but we still have to review with the select board later?
No, it's binding. It's a binding signature on a contract, and you can be sued if you don't allow it to proceed.
Okay.
So I think, Corey, this is above our pay grade.
Yeah, I'll follow up. Well, I'm also just surprised that there's any sort of municipal process which requires same day action. That just seems like a recipe for failure across the board.
Well,
because of how
we've
these
known
things
this is
go,
the way
so-
it was from day one. I mean, Good Energy was very upfront about this from the very beginning 3 years ago to tell us that, yes, indeed, when the bid comes in, it has to be signed that day.
I think, again, that is because of the volatility of energy prices and bids. This isn't like the price can stay valid for 90 days. There's just no way in the electricity and energy markets you can keep an offer open for 90 days. You can't even keep it open for 2 months, a month. So that is why the way the community aggregation program works is you get the bids and you have to sign it that day. And that has been clear from the beginning. The select board did not like that aspect to it. And so they inserted another level of approval, which John has been very, he's acknowledged is not normal, but it is in the Cohasset approval. So I guess this is not, the Alternative Energy Committee does not implement, right? We make recommendations, we move opportunities forward, we say we can assist, but usually there's a handoff. That handoff has occurred. And I think, Corey, this is on you all, and as our liaison, if you agree, it might be helpful to just make sure that there's not going to be a violation of our plan if there's no role for the select board to at least be aware of what the bids are.
I'll do what I can tomorrow to follow up on both the history of where we are, what people's understood authority is, and whether everyone's on the same page, and have town staff report back. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Corey.
Good. And then marketing. So now the marketing piece, there are state legal requirements about the marketing and the publicity related to any plan, including our plan, and Good Energy handles that. But in addition to that, when we were presenting the community aggregation, because it is an opt-out program, there was a lot of concern expressed to us, the Alternative Energy Committee and sponsor of this program, that it was very important to make sure people were aware this was happening and that they were going to have these opportunities and that the marketing occurred. Now, things have been happening without us in the loop tied to the bidding timing, and decisions are being made in a very quick way. But that said, Debbie has put together a proposed marketing plan to augment the legal requirements to uphold our commitment that we made when we were promoting the community choice aggregation program. So Debbie, would you like to talk about what that looks like?
Shall I go through the presentation or no?
Yes, I think that'd be great.
Okay. All right. So do you want me? So let me share my screen.
Christopher, welcome.
Hey, sorry, I'm so late.
No, please don't apologize. We all have commitments. Chris Odleifson, I think you know everybody on this call except for Gordon Williams and Montana Castle. Gordon Williams is a guest. He's very interested in the work of our committee, and Montana, who is named as Michelle Leary, and it's not Michelle Leary. Montana is the new Town of Cohasset Resiliency coordinator and grant writer. And she is stepping in for the staff, and she'll be working with us going forward.
Well, nice to meet you, Montana and Gordon.
Nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
So wait a second, Chris joined us. Okay, so basically, do you all see that? I don't know why this is coming in on the bottom. Do you see as we talk, everything is coming in? I don't know what that's about, but huh?
Yeah, it seems that you've got some kind of speech to
Yeah,
text.
I have no idea what it's, but anyway, because it's.
Well, hold on, Debbie, do you see that CC in a box at the bottom of your slides?
Yeah.
Turn that
Oh, is
off.
that the caption? Gotcha. Okay. That's the caption. Okay, so all right, so basically just a quick review of this. There's going to be 3 products of the aggregation. We all, are very familiar with it, but the main one is the one on the left, the Cohasset Standard, which will have 10% or more renewables above what National Grid has. And then there's the basic plan, which just meets the, the National Grid standards. And then there's the 100% plan, which they're going to call actually the plus plan. They're not going to call it the 100%, but they're going to call it the plus plan. And so when we do any messaging, these are all the things that need to be included. I don't think I need to go through all that. You know, if you want to see it, that would be fine. So outreach and education basics. So I'm going to quickly go, well, I'll hit a lot of this later, but these are the things that need to be done. And I can revisit this, but the preparation timeline. Now, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of time working on the prep time due to, I don't know, some sort of not being tasked to do with that. So everything is behind. I am just sort of, Steve and I have been waiting and been told we need to wait till we're officially tasked to do this work. So nothing has been done to date, even though things should have been started. So let me just go. The pre-bid communications preparation. So the bid is going to come out on the 14th. This is, and the 13th is the pre-bid meeting. Before that, we should have been doing these items, creating these different materials, press release templates, posters. I'd like to have a QR code for our website on everything, a spokesperson. We were going to hopefully line people up to do social media interviews, get them all ready. Steve and I had he developed some bullet points for discussion that we were going to put up on social media. In other words, educating people to look for the program that's coming up. And some of the suggestions of the opinion leaders that I came up with were, you know, Chris Senior, Jack Creighton. None of this has been done yet because we're waiting to hear whether we're supposed to be doing this. And then interviews to schedule. Within 7 days of bid approval, this was supposed to have been done. Finalizing all materials to include electricity rates. So this is, once the bid is approved, then we plug in all of this. So we can put in the electricity rates, the program details, and all the language that's required, posters, the interviews, and planning community meetings. From 7 days after the bid to the customer notification letter, which is a 21-day period. So the way it works is from the day of the bid, we have 30 days before the customer notification letter goes out. And then after that, there's another 30 days where you can work with people to get them to hopefully upsell them to the 100%. You know, you get them to return any postcards if they're opting out or changing, answering questions. So it's basically a 2-month process. So this is the work that needs to go from the 7 days after the bid to the 21-day period. And that is where you're really just inundating people as much as possible with information that this is coming. It's, you know, hopefully that talking about the benefits and everything. And so 15 days before the notification letter that goes out. So that would be actually right around Christmas, actually. It would be sort of between Christmas and New Year's. I mean, the timing of this is not good either, but there's a press release that's sent out with the official announcement, and that is done by it's basically issued by the town but supplied by Good Energy. That's something that press release is one of the things Good Energy does. The interviews, the posters, all that is stuff that we do. But the official thing is the notification letter. And then before the notification letter, these are things that we would do, is run the interviews, release the newspaper article, send out a postcard with dates of community meetings, and put up new posters. And then after the letter goes to everybody, then you have to, this is mandatory, you have to have some community meetings. So basically we need to start planning for that. And we should do that as soon as the notification letter date is known, because it should be about a week or so after the notification letter goes out that we have the community meetings. So, and then basically there'll be other outreach events. So, you know, meeting with seniors, civic groups, and this is the messaging, reminders about the 30-day consideration period, the program value, how to get questions answered, and encouragement to sign up for 100% renewable energy. And the last thing is upselling the 100% renewable option. So this is something that I'm hoping that we really, you know, kind of as times go, as this process goes along, we turn up the heat to get people to really, you know, get excited and incentivized to select the 100% renewable option. And so basically that is it. I think.
So Debbie, I'm confused. What has to be done? And I assume anything that has to be done is being overseen by Good Energy?
Yeah, so that's why I went back to this. So these next two slides, this one and this one, were prepared by Good Energy, by Daria before she left. And so let's just quickly go through and see what, you know, and I'll tell you what's been done and what needs to be done and what they are responsible for. So website, they have made a website. It is up now. They manage the website. We can't put any content on it. It's all their website. So that part has been done. A phone number, we have to have a phone number, and that phone number is the supplier. It's a general program information number, and it's got the supplier's customer service line on it. So once we know who the successful bidder is, we have to, you know, put that on everything too. So
sorry, when you say we, again, could you distinguish between what Good Energy is going to be doing, and that's a need to have, versus what the town needs to do?
Phone number, Good Energy supplies. We need to publicize that. They do that. Okay, so create material. If you go between the request for the bid and then the successful bid, so if you look at the successful bid, that will be, if everything goes well, on the 14th. So everything to the left of that second orange arrow should have been done, except for the phone number. We can't do that yet. So materials created, line up all outreach partners. That's the stuff that whoever is responsible and will do that from the town's point of view. And the outreach liaisons will be the town's responsibility. The interviews will be the town's responsibility. Finalize the materials and reaching out to the, I think that's to the folders. I can't really see because the pictures are overlaid on it, but so that is a lot of town responsibility. Recording interviews 20 to 25 days before the letter goes out. Now, if you see that orange line, that's the next month. From the bid to now, we're a month to the customer notification. So these are all the things that needed to have been done between the bid and the customer notification letter. So the interviews for 20 to 25 days before, that would be the town. The press release, I think, is supplied, it's mandatory, it's supplied by the by Good Energy. And as it says, it has, you know, they put in a quote, and I think that they take care of that press release. Newsletter articles, us. Social media, us. Materials launch is the postcard is them. They will do the postcard. That is what they do. But the ads and things like that, the physical signage, us. The community meetings. I think we would work with them to set the community meetings up. So that's going to be kind of a joint thing. And that's usually 3 to 5 days, but those have already have to start being planned before that. Does that make sense?
Hey, Debbie?
Yeah.
Do they have sort of a playbook? Like if they've done this a bunch of times, I imagine they have sort of a work plan template, and I imagine they have all sorts of templated materials and so on. And that we then can just sort of go through the work plan and make sure we have there's a name associated with everything needs to be done and so on. Or are they the project? Are they the project?
Well, we had Steve and I had a meeting with a guy named Gary Fogelman, who's new on the job. And frankly, he'd never even seen this outreach plan timeline or anything. I don't know. I don't know how much. I mean, I think you're right that there's definitely templates of things that we can get, definitely. And, you know, and I think that they will be doing things, but I don't know. It was Steve, you were there. I mean, it wasn't that.
So Chris,
wasn't
this
that
is the
knowledgeable.
playbook. This is a playbook that we were provided, what, a year and a half ago?
We're looking
Yep.
at the playbook.
This is a playbook that we were provided by a woman who was part of Good Energy and who is no longer there. So this was a playbook she provided us. And the current person who's in that role did not have anything like this.
I mean, Good Energy, this is what Good Energy does, right?
Yes, but what Good Energy does is what's required under the law. And what the town, when we proposed the community aggregation, what the town representatives and leaders were very concerned about was lack of communication and marketing,
right.
Especially because of the opt-out provision that you're automatically enrolled unless you explicitly opt out. Jack Creighton, who is now the chair, was particularly concerned, did not like the concept of an opt-out, thought that this was heavy-handed government regulation and oversight. And we said that we, as the Alternative Energy Committee proposing this, agreed, and we wanted to make sure that we communicated properly. And so that's why we're having this discussion now. So this goes above and beyond what's legally required to make sure that the people in town are not caught unaware, because that doesn't help anybody.
Right. Okay. So Good Energy is accustomed to working with towns that just sort of roll it out and don't really don't tell many people about it.
Or just do the bare minimum.
Got it. Okay. So I wonder, Debbie, we might ask if they have any examples of other towns' stuff.
Well, yeah, and I mean, basically, there's the 6 towns. I think we've been, I've got sort of pulled the towns together in different meetings, and I think we're talking about sharing things, but things like interviews with opinion leaders and things like that. I mean, that's basically on us, and posters. There's a lot of things that are obviously unique to us, and to be honest, I think people know that we've been asking for quite a while to get started on this and to be tasked with this. And anyways, and now I feel like, especially with the holidays coming up, it's really going to be a crunch. It's anyway, so.
So I think this is a lot of great work, Debbie, and I do want to allow other people to ask questions. But for the benefit of everybody, the goal was to get this in writing, walk us through what we had previously been communicated about, what we had previously been given as a playbook, and then send this to the town who's been moving forward with the bids and say, this is an important part of the process. Who's in charge of this? And we'd be happy to help.
So when you say who's in charge of this, does that mean there'll be somebody from the town who does a lot of this, does the work, communicating work, or what do you mean by that, Tanya?
That's exactly, well, somebody should be doing this communication based on the playbook.
Yeah, is that on the Alternative Energy Committee, or is that on, on the, who owns it?
Well, that's a question. Right now, I don't think anybody owns it. And the Alternative Energy Committee, I think we need to break this apart into 3 components, right? One is what's required by law. Good Energy owns that because they want to be able to be in compliance. The second is what is important for our town in particular, to make sure that everybody is aware of what is happening, and to make sure that the communication is appropriate, as we had initially discussed 3 years ago when we were proposing this community aggregation plan. Right now, nobody owns that. Debbie has taken the lead in communicating what we've learned over the course of the last 3 years about what should be done. But right now, nobody is doing this.
To be honest, I've been, Steve and I had a meeting with Justin, we've been trying to be very proactive. We've sent emails and said, these are some of the people we'd like to interview, but who, just tell us if we're the ones that should be, somebody's got to take the lead. No one has been forthcoming on this. As Tanya knows, we've been trying for probably 3 weeks. As soon as I realized about we thought we were good. Steve and I thought we were going to have a month before deadline. So we've been doing this for a couple more weeks, maybe 6 weeks, right, Steve? I mean, we've been trying to get and circulating this, talking to people.
Debbie and I have been kind of
emails.
waving our hands and saying, hey,
I know, like,
start now.
You've got these willing people.
Time's a wasting, time's a wasting. So
I
start.
know. And I have to say,
Do we have the authority to ask these people to do interviews, et cetera, et cetera? Nothing. Silence.
Nothing.
So I mean, who gives us the thumbs up? I mean, what's the governance structure here?
This would be the Chris Senior and Michelle Leary and the select board, right?
And
I mean, I
those
think
are
at
the
a minimum,
I've been contacting, sending them emails, follow-up email for the meeting that I pulled together with those 4 people on my initiative. And anyway, I'm you can tell I'm a little frustrated because we've lost a lot of time to lay the groundwork, especially with the holidays. And I don't know how much, with my ambitious ideas, realistically now, it's going to be
Well, we
tough.
can only do what we're going to do, but I think at a minimum, we have to make it clear that the Alternative Energy Committee has conveyed the information that we're aware of related to what a marketing plan should include, that we volunteered to move forward with this. We want to move forward with helping. Again, for purposes of communication, and that we've now put together a plan. So that's the point of this presentation, is it's in the official record. It's going to be in our meeting minutes. We will forward this to Chris Senior. Montana is aware of this. Corey is aware of this, but we will forward this to the select board and Chris and Michelle and say, this is the approach, that the playbook that we were provided. Now, I talked about the 3 levels, and I've mentioned 2. One is what good energy has to do to be compliant with the law related to community aggregation. The second is what good communication and marketing would look like for the town, following up on the playbook and what we've discussed in the past. And then the third is the promotion of the 100% renewables. And I don't, again, that's like the outer circle. I'm not even sure. Well, I can tell you, we don't have the authority to do that unless we're given the authority to do that. We are not an advocacy committee. And I think that we have to be very careful about whether this committee is the right committee to do that, Debbie and Steve, to promote the 100%, or if that's something that churches and, the environmental groups within the town, citizen groups, should take the lead on. But I think at a minimum, we should, convey that this is something that could be done as well.
Part of the communication materials as to what the options are.
Well, so
Yeah.
at a minimum, we say what the options are, but what Debbie has is pushing it and advocating it, that you should do 100% renewable. And I know for a fact that there are members on the leadership team of this town that would be against having us play that role. And unless we're given a blessing to do that, or given a charge to do that, we don't have the authority to advocate like that as a town committee, because we're not an advocacy committee. We don't set policy. And this starts to get very close to policy.
Well, I mean, we can always pull that out and just mention it, and as you said, I mean, maybe we put it in someone else's, find somebody else.
Well, it's
to
one of
work
the 3
with.
options. We're not going to remove the option. So we have to tell people about it.
Yeah, we just don't, we don't stress it. And when I was saying, I mean, it was still not telling them they should. I was just, hoping that, trying to, get them excited to make a difference if they wanted to. I think it's still very much an option, not, an optional thing, not a like, you should do this kind of thing.
Right. And I think the default is which one? The default is the 10%.
10%.
And that's because that's where Good Energy thinks that the equivalent price is going to be.
Yeah, well, I think
That's where it was. That's where it had been in the past. We don't know what it's going to come out to be. They recognize all 6 towns here have a similar philosophy here, in that we would like to put as much renewable energy into the default standard plan as possible without exceeding the base utility price. That's always been our goal. So at the time we were originated the project, it seemed like that might fall around 10%. That's the way it had been for other towns. But what it is now with the energy prices where they are now, we don't really know. We'll find out. We'll find out on Wednesday.
No, it's very market specific. I mean, and there have been instances where communities have gone out to bid, and for a price less than the price of default supply, they've gotten 100%.
Absolutely.
So we don't know until the bids come in, but I
Right.
think the key thing is this is about communicating, sticking within our authority. This committee does not have authority to set policy or to advocate. We can recommend. And what we're recommending right now is there should be a lot of communication above and beyond the minimum to ensure that the town of Cohasset has a successful community aggregation program. That nobody is surprised, nobody gets upset, that everybody knows what's happening. I think at 1.3 years ago, I said that our goal would be to make sure that if somebody in town is not aware of this, they're living under a rock. Because we've done such a good job in communicating. And I continue to believe that we, as the original recommender of this program, should play a role. And so this presentation gives us that next step. It's in the record now. It will be in our meeting minutes. Debbie, if you could make an action item, which I will forward this to Chris and Michelle and Montana, you'll be copied, and Corey and the select board members, just so that they're aware of the history and the importance of the communication and marketing around this program above and beyond the state minimums.
And Tanya, I just hopped off because I was checking your AEC is on the agenda for Tuesday regarding aggregation. So you can get your affirmative vote policy wise and go through the communications pitch on next Tuesday. So we're on track.
Okay.
So timeline got short real fast.
Fabulous. Debbie, are you available on Tuesday?
I'm gonna have to check, but I will try to make myself available for sure.
Okay, and you and I can walk through this presentation. I think it's a
Well, I
It's a
did
great
a very
overview.
sloppy job. I will do something a lot clearer. I was trying to expedite things, and when I did, it was very sloppy, but I would have a much more cogent presentation.
okay. Well, let's go through that and let's put it in the Alternative Energy Committee template, if that's okay.
Hey, Corey, can I sort of just from my newbie status, I'm taking a while to get up to speed. What would be sort of the expected result of the meeting on Tuesday? I mean, what would the Alternative Energy Committee leave with permission to do?
So basically an affirmation that if the bids are ready, that we will go forward. So I think from AEC, we're looking at just a timeline of how we got here, that a few years ago, I believe town meeting and select boards authorized to research this for the purposes of saving the town money and potentially lowering our carbon footprint. We have come to the decision point on this, and you're reinforcing the opt-out, reinforcing the communications, and does this, that Wednesday will be the decision point. And if Chris Senior is authorized by the select board to sign the community up for the aggregation program and to enact the communications plan or to develop the communications plan. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it sure does. So that means that's the anticipation would be give Chris Senior the authority to do whatever it takes to implement the program. And we then are on the side saying, Chris, we'll help if you need us, sort of things. But he is, as town manager, owns the implementation.
Exactly. Yeah. He is the manager, right? So, the select board makes policy. Chris is the one who can enact and act on that policy. So, and AEC advises us to give direction to Chris. So that's how the chain flows. So you're advising us to do something. We will then take a vote on it, and the town manager will then enact the policy. So,
Corey, thank you very much. That was very elucidating.
all right, good to hear. Thanks.
All
So
right.
let me just ask one other thing though, because now my stomach is kind of in a knot, I will say, because there's so many things I want to do with this if that happens. But like I've made it very clear, we've lost quite a bit of lead time because we didn't get tasked with this. So is there anybody in the Alternative Energy Committee that would, if we were to be tasked with this, or at least have responsibility to some level, would want to work with Steve and me to do some of this. Justin is available at town hall, but I know he is stretched very thin, and I think he's someone who is so eager to help, but I'm not sure how much, I mean, so is there anybody else who could help with like recording interviews or, setting up interviews with Stroll and the anchor and stuff like that?
And
Anybody?
Debbie, I'd be happy to help, as long as I am, I have the appropriate capabilities to do whatever you ask of me. We got to negotiate a little bit about what I can do and what I can't do.
Well, it's
but-
really more like setting up the logistics is all, I mean, the content, don't worry about that. It's just, more like lining up interviews and things like that. So,
Debbie, might I suggest, and I think that it behooves every member of this committee to be involved to make this happen. Assuming this is the recommendation of the select board to the town manager, that they should use us as a resource.
I would also like to volunteer myself to help you guys out. It doesn't seem like a very large task, and I would love to help you guys with community outreach and whatnot.
terrific.
All right. Thank you for raising your hand, Montana.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I can help as well. I think, what we did, I guess, defined here is that a lot of this has to be done by the town, right? I think probably Justin will need to be more involved, and I think, I know he's very busy, but I mean, if we're talking about doing 143 and a lot of these video segments and posting it up and those types of things, I mean,
Right, but-
that is his expertise.
Yep.
Saying that, so I would just make sure to make the ask to Chris that, do we have support to carry out some of these things? I mean, obviously this timeline is probably will need to get adjusted and maybe cross out days and put weeks after some of these things, but
No, the clock ticks starting next Wednesday.
I put the
Period.
date. I think we need to put the date in because we know when the clock starts. So let's put
Yes,
dates in.
so we have 2 months to do the entire thing, and everything, there's a lot of stuff that has to be done before the letter goes out and after the letter goes out, and there are different tasks. So this is why it's not like, you can just sort of, yeah.
So when's the opt-out? When do people have the opportunity to opt out, or when's that decision have to be made? How much time do you have?
A
before-
month, 30 days after the 14th.
Okay.
So we would be like January 12th or something like that, right in the middle of the holidays. I mean, it's kind
Well,
of,
they can opt out by mid-January.
No, the opt-out card would go out around the 12th of January.
yes,
And then they have 30 days from that point on to make their decision.
Okay.
yes.
Because I don't know how you'd make a lot of this stuff beforehand anyway, if you don't, or why you would, I guess.
No, I think the nice thing is, thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Steve, for making this all happen. But I think this is an amazing marketing plan. We've been talking about this while we've been waiting for the plan to be approved. And, thank God we got this from Good Energy before Daria left. But I feel that this is a very comprehensive plan. I think it's consistent with what we said we would take responsibility for. And now that I know we're on the select board meeting for Tuesday, we can present it. And
We-
again, it's another open meeting publication of this is what we should be doing above and beyond.
The number of media elements here, I mean, there's quite a bit of work here.
And I was also going to throw out, there's obviously the new media, and there's, the anchor and whatnot, but there's also just having AEC members available at the senior center for breakfast to answer questions. I mean, or the library, right? I mean, we've got a great community resource in the library program, and, they can send a little thing out, say a Q&A with AEC member XYZ about this program. And just like we saw with the zoning bylaw forums, getting people in a room is a really great way to get a message across. Sometimes it's a struggle if it's just in front of your screen, but if you're in a room, it's a lot easier to talk.
Yep.
As far as the copy goes, I can turn around an article for publications and whatnot fairly quickly, because I've already written quite a bit about the aggregation program. So I'm confident of that. And for the public meetings, I mean, I'm always available to participate in the public meetings if we can't find
Well, those are one of the things that I had mentioned. And it's something that I think we've really got to give some thought. If we are tasked with this, I definitely think we need a spokesperson for our group, somebody who is going to be the one who speaks at the community meetings and things like that. So that's something that we really need to think about, who is going to be, sort of the face of this and the spokesperson.
Okay. Debbie, I think these are things that we can, as we present this to the select board, they might have ideas.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And if they don't, we can decide ourselves. Okay, so I guess the question is, do we as a committee want to have a subset presenting to the select board, or do we want to tomorrow file an agenda for a alternative energy committee joint meeting with the select board?
Well, how soon could that be pulled off?
It'd have to be posted tomorrow because the meeting with the select board is on Tuesday. We're already on the agenda.
Oh, you're saying if our whole committee comes.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Or it just can be Debbie, Steve, and myself. What would people prefer for the Tuesday meeting with the select board?
I don't know whether this matters, but I won't be able to make it.
Okay.
I'm not able to make it either. I think you guys
I don't think we need the whole
Yeah.
committee. I'm not sure what the advantage of that would be. I think it just,
Okay.
you and Debbie can handle it. I mean, I'm
Okay.
glad to be there if you want me to be there also.
Steve, you were the face of this, so I think I think you should be there. So I
Okay.
think if everybody is comfortable with the three of us presenting to the select board on this, we can take the lead.
Aye.
Okay. All right. We don't need an official vote, but it sounds like that people are comfortable with that. Okay. Anything else? I'd like to
All right,
wrap up.
Can I
this.
just quickly say one thing? Tanya, and I would love to meet with you or talk with you before, and I don't know how much time has been allocated for our presentation and the other things. So we do need to sort of obviously work out how much time we have, how we're gonna do this, because there's a
Yes.
lot here.
Okay, well, why don't you and I coordinate with that offline?
Yep.
And if you want to send me the PowerPoint slide version, I can put it into template for our alternative energy committee. If you're comfortable with that, and then I can highlight things that I think we might want to tighten up and walk through it with you. If you'd like
Yep.
me to take the lead on that for the next step.
Okay, so I'll send you the PowerPoint.
Great. And I'm looking up right now how many minutes they gave us for the Cohasset Select Board. Thank you, Corey, for highlighting that. Nobody informed us that we were on the agenda. But I'm
think it
very
just-
glad we are. We call that magic.
And yeah, whatever time you have, it won't be enough. So my apologies ahead of time.
No, I know. I'm sure they gave us 10 minutes, but let's see. Electrical. Oh, good. They gave us 5.
5 minutes? Oh my God.
That's all right. We'll
And we're day after town meeting, so I think attention spans will be shorter than usual as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we're scheduled for 8:10 for 5 minutes. Okay. All right, so that's good. Good action items. Let's talk about the next item on the agenda. Thank you, Debbie and Steve, again, for all of your work on this. It's nice that it's finally coming to fruition. Frustrating that it took 3 years, but it's time. It's go time. It's go time. Okay, the next is the town meeting. Monday evening is the special town meeting. There is no need to hold an alternative energy committee meeting because we're not taking any votes. There are a couple of items that are on the warrant that intersect with our efforts. The primary one being the electric school bus demonstration project. Again, by magic, unanimous approval by the advisory committee, the capital budget committee, and the select board. They all unanimously approved allocation of $25,000 for the electric school bus demonstration project. And it explicitly says electric school bus, but not demonstration project. So it's $25,000 for an electric school bus lease. Once that's approved, the school would then have funding to allow them to enter into a contract with NLX. That's good. Steve, you noted there were a couple of other items on the warrant.
Yeah, what was it? Now I've forgotten already. Some budget thing, what was it?
Yeah, Debbie, do you want to take your presentation off?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
Let me go find the warrant.
You know what? I never got a notification of this meeting.
Okay, well, I would recommend that if this alternative energy committee, if the members would like to sit together, that's always good. We would not be having a meeting unless people want to have them. Well, it's too late. I can't file an agenda. So we are not going to have an official alternative energy committee meeting. However, if members of the alternative energy committee would like to attend and sit together, we most certainly can do that. And we have done that before, and it's a nice show of the leadership that we provide to this town. So I will be there. I'll be sitting in the second row. I'll be wearing green. And if anybody else would like to join me, I would love that. Corey, you'll be sitting in your own seat up at the front.
Yeah, I don't want to be up there. Can I sit in the back with you?
Only when you retire from the select board committee. Gordon, if you'd like to join us, you're most welcome to join us as well. And these town meetings are just a beautiful way of, although I don't know, are you able to vote? Do you vote?
No, I'm not able to vote on anything. I pay taxes. Didn't you threw some tea in the harbor about that at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah, we made some
Taxation without
noise. How does
that work?
representation.
We weren't serious about fixing it, though. A bunch of people in DC have some ideas about that, too.
Okay, so anyway, I would highly recommend the members of this committee to attend as part of your civic duty and in your role as leaders of this town. But I will be sitting in the second row representing the Alternative Energy Committee and wearing green. So, and Gordon, unfortunately, if you do join us, you can't sit next to me. You'll have to sit in the non-voting section. But if you've never been to a town meeting, I highly recommend you come. It is such a wonderful New England governance structure, and it's very unique to New England. And as you've been a member of this town for 6 years, it's a great way of seeing how decisions get made and monies get funded.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that's the town meeting. Let me see, where's my, okay, next is an update. So the electric school bus grant, as I said, $25,000 has been unanimously recommended by the select board, the advisory committee, and the capital budget committee for an electric school bus. It is around $25,000, which is very close to the price that was bid by NLX. The school committee unanimously asked the schools to complete negotiations with NLX. That was in progress until the schools felt like there wasn't going to be funding till next spring. And then they were happily surprised, I hope, to find that funding had been granted and or had been recommended. But until Monday happens, they don't have the official budget. But that said, if that approves, which I anticipate it, if that's approved, which I anticipate it will be, the school can then proceed with finalizing negotiations for the electric school bus. So that's the status there. The mass CEC batteries for Harborview. Montana, do you have an update for us?
As of right now, Michelle told me it needs legal counseling. That's all the information that I have.
Okay, we're gonna lose that. We were awarded that in June. So could you try to push with Michelle to get the legal review of that letter that Mass CEC has provided us that we would need to sign before we could get $20,000 to provide backup batteries to Harborview? It'd be nice to provide it for this winter, but we've been waiting for months for town council to do a number of things, and this is one of them. But if
I
we could
will-
action item Montana, have you
Yes.
push that through, that'd be great.
I'll talk to her tomorrow.
Thank you. National Grid Fleet Assessment Update. Did Michelle, has that just died? Should we start taking that off the agenda, or is there something going on with that?
No, so we are actually in the early planning stages with National Grid. We're hoping to look at electrifying in 2024, 2025, but we are in the planning stages.
Okay, so that is moving
Yes.
forward.
Yes, don't worry, it's not dead.
Okay,
This- The fleet of our, what, town vehicles or what is this?
yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, National Grid provides a free assessment of municipal town vehicle fleets to identify what the cost and benefits would be of converting to electric.
Tanya,
Yes.
that was my question about the warrant. I saw that item for electric vehicles on the budget there, and I think you explained to me that was to purchase the current lease that we have that are.
Yes, so the town, so there's also a, thank you, Steve, that there was recommendation to approve monies to purchase the 3 electric vehicles that the town currently leases. And those vehicles continue to be in good shape and they continue to be very popular. And I believe that the lease price is very favorable, especially considering what's been happening with inflation and the cost of used vehicles. So it makes economic sense for the town to purchase the 3 electric vehicles that we've been leasing at, I believe, no net charge to the town because of grants.
I saw something, I can't remember where I saw it, but the town is planning on procuring an additional 2 electric vehicles for a total of 5, I guess.
Yes, and we should all pat ourselves on the back. This is very squarely because of the work that this Alternative Energy Committee has done. It's wonderful. Okay, solar energy projects. Montana, do you have an update on the contract for the credit that's been sitting at town council's office since February?
I unfortunately do not have any information on that. I believe that will be discussed on the special town meeting on Monday. I'm not 100% sure. I can get back to you guys on that tomorrow.
Okay, I don't think it's on the warrant article. I think we're
Okay.
waiting because it doesn't have to be. The town doesn't have to approve a procurement. And so just to remind everybody, there's a developer that is proposing to put solar panels on the Stop and Shop roofs and provide us a guaranteed discount on our electricity bill to basically sell us credits. That would be a credit on our bill. And Chris Senior has the ability to enter into those contracts. We currently are in the queue. The project may not even happen because there's a cluster study happening by National Grid, which is basically not going to be completed for at least a year. But that said, National Grid has indicated that one-off projects may be able to move forward despite the cluster analysis on the interconnections that National Grid is reviewing. But it can't move forward if we don't have town council review the contract and decide that that's something we want to do.
So Tanya, there was something that we needed to get a signature, that happened, so we got in a queue, and then we got the contract and we're reviewing that now. Is that what's happening here?
Yes.
All right,
And not only are we in the queue, so for that particular project, we were put in the queue for the interconnection with National Grid. Then that's what's stuck behind the cluster analysis that National Grid is doing for a number of other solar projects that are in the South Shore outside of Cohasset. The other thing that signing that letter of intent did was allowed the developer to put an application in for Smart 2.0 credits from the state. And that has gone through and was approved. So that is part of the way we get some of the savings, is because of the program through the state. That said, because of where electricity prices are right now, the value of the Smart 2.0 credits might go to zero. Just because of the way that the price for those credits are set. So, but that said, it's just one more box that's been ticked. And the outstanding issue right now is there's a contract, a draft contract for the credits that has been provided to the town for town council to review. And it would, right now, it's structured as a guaranteed savings. So whatever the credit is, we would pay 90% of the price, actually like 88% of the price of the credit. And so that 12.5% net difference we would get as a offset to our bill. And so it's almost a no-brainer, but that is what we're waiting on town council to approve.
free money.
It's, yeah, guaranteed free money. Guaranteed free money. I mean, with prices where they are now, we're like rolling in the money when we talk about data on how much we are saving on the solar energy rate. But yes, it's free money. We're trying to get town council to review it. We were given that draft contract since February. Every meeting to the select board that we present, we say we would like to have town council review this. Every meeting we have, we say we would like town council to review this. And it is still in town council's inbox. If it's even been sent, we don't even know if it's been sent. We've been told it's been sent, or at least it's sitting in the queue for town council to review wherever that queue is. But again, we are potentially delaying things, but there are other things that are delaying things on that project as well.
I will also bring it up to Michelle tomorrow when I meet with her.
Okay, thank you. So Gordon, do you see the lovely practice of patience we have to exercise?
I was just thinking of that glacier that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
The patience of Job.
And I say every single meeting, my husband wanted to name one of our children Patience, so I'd have a little. So I'm practicing patience. And Debbie laughs every meeting. So I keep saying it. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so those the solar energy projects, we should be thinking about whether it would make sense to go to the town in the spring and ask them for permission to put solar panels on the library roof. That roof is being replaced. As soon as a new roof goes in, we should try to move forward with the project. Because it's a town property, we'd have to get town permission to lease. But I think we don't necessarily need to worry about that now. I just think we might want to consider putting together a list of potential new roofs that could host solar and think about bringing it to the town meeting in the spring.
Didn't we already have permission to put solar on town buildings?
Not all town buildings. We gave a selection of town buildings because you have to be very specific. And that included the school roofs. And we did that in 2020 so we could go out to bid. And all of the roofs that we submitted are either too small to make economic sense or too old to make economic sense because they should be replaced soon, but they aren't replaced yet. And the fact that the town library roof is now being replaced, that was not in our list. So that would be a new one.
So Tanya, isn't
Yeah.
the town library roof, it's slate right now, right?
I don't know.
I
But
think
Select Energy did go and give us um, a high level estimate of what we could save.
Mm. I
And
mean,
it's
that might
basic,
be something we'd have to think about architectural. You know, we might have to maybe research some ideas about some sort of architectural tiles. Because, you know, that roof has been, you know, is such an integral part of that building, and I think it's slate. I mean, obviously we can't replace it with slate, it would cost the earth, but you know, it's something we might want to think about if we're going to make a recommendation.
right. No, I
think,
agree.
Yeah, the angled part of the roof is slate, and I don't think that was being changed out. I thought someone had talked to us. I think it's the rubber roof in the rear, kind of
Oh,
where like rec department is. I think that rubber part was being replaced. That's what my understanding was from our last discussion.
and that's
Yes,
a great exposure. The
Yes.
back, yes, yeah.
yes, the rubber membrane that's above it, so it's the part you can't see, and it's flat and it's perfect. So that slate part won't, you know, it won't be visible at all. The panels and the slate part won't be touched. So
And
Great.
just to put it in perspective, putting solar on the town buildings and having that electricity feed directly into the buildings as an offset saves us not just the electricity costs, but also the transmission and distribution charges. And so in order to receive the same savings as 100 kilowatts on the library roof, we need 500 kilowatts on the Stop and Shop third-party site. That is how that works. So we basically get 5 times the savings if we can put it on a school on a town building versus a third-party site. But that said, savings, guaranteed savings are guaranteed savings. And we have plenty of electricity bill headroom to be able to take those savings. Okay, so that's on the solar energy projects. The solar energy array, actually, I'm gonna pull that up, but while I'm pulling that up, Josh, do you have the update on the charging stations?
I do. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen. Get rid of that. Am I sharing? Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah, so looks like last couple months have been from an energy standpoint have been actually more. There's been more energy used at the stations in the last couple months than there has been the previous 3, which would not really sure why. October was, you know, the biggest month, but 7.3 megawatts were used. So
I think it's everybody trying to get their free electricity before we start charging.
right.
Hurry,
Well,
charge it.
That
So
does,
Gordon, just so you know, we have 18 ports in town for chargers, 5 different locations, 18 ports. It was put in for basically 10% of the cost of the charging stations. To date, the town has not been charging for the electricity that's being used. The public can go charge for free. This committee, seeing the rising costs, both from the price and the quantity, made a recommendation that the town start charging to at least try to recover the cost. And I think our recommendation was that the town charge 20 cents a kilowatt hour, which would cover our contracted cost for energy, delivered energy. And after Josh completes his presentation of the data on these charging stations, Montana will let us know what the status is of implementing the charges. So sorry, go ahead, Josh.
so that's pretty much it. You know, still just a lot of, you know, idle time, and still looks like unique drivers is going down. That's about all the real insights from this. You guys want to look at time of day, but outside of this, I mean, just if you guys, here's that website. I just wanted the class aggregation, just a quick. It looks pretty good. If you haven't checked it out, it's electricity@cohassetmass.org, but I won't harp on that. I know that's not what we're here for. Any questions on this? Okay. I'll take a
Okay.
snapshot. Take a snapshot and send it out.
Awesome. Thanks. We'll include that on our minutes. I'm sharing the update on the solar landfill project. We have an approximately 450 kilowatt solar energy array on the old landfill that started production in 2017. To date, it has saved the town $307,000. We went and celebrated its 5th birthday with birthday cakes and happy birthday songs, which we recorded but did not post. We have it.
I sent it to, I sent the pictures anyway to Justin, and he didn't post them to social media. He said he wants to put them into a kind of production that he's making. So it's kind of like, I thought we were, kind of handing stuff over to be posted to social media, but he's putting them in some other production that he's putting together for 143 TV.
Okay, so we're gonna practice patience.
Yeah.
And just keep doing it.
Yeah.
I will say I've seen that photo somewhere with Tanya and all of you guys celebrating, and it was on something social media wise. I don't know when it was, but I saw a picture of you guys when I first started my position, if that gives you any consolation.
Excellent.
He was going to send them out too, and the Chris's 5 things for Friday. I think we just, Tanya, you were going to come up with a few points.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I mean,
well, here's some information. So $306,925 of savings through November. It went active in August 2017, celebrating its 5th year. And I think the other thing that's important to note, if you look at the savings on a month-to-month basis for this year, you see, of course, in the winter when there's not a lot of sunlight, because we are so far north, we save around $3,000 to $4,000 a month. In the summer peak, it goes up, or this last summer, it went up to around $8,000 in June, when we have the longest days of the year. And if you look at how much we saved in November, when the days are shorter, we just saved almost $11,000 in 1 month. And that is because the credit price that we're getting for producing that electricity and selling it back to National Grid is 37.7 cents per kilowatt hour. And we're buying the energy for 8.8 cents. So the difference between 37.7 cents per kilowatt hour, which is the credit we're getting on our bill for every kilowatt hour produced, and the 8.8 cents we're paying to the developer, results in that's almost $11,000 savings for the month of November. So that is huge. That is huge. So we've been saving around $60,000 a year. If you look at the top 2018, 2019, 2021, a little bit less in 2020. We've been saving around $60,000 a year with that little landfill project. And because of the credit price due to the high energy prices this winter, we may end up saving close to $100,000 on a 12-month basis from June 2022 to June 2023. That's just like incredible. That is bank.
Can I just,
Fantastic.
I mean, I can talk about this offline if you'd like. I just wouldn't mind going through the spreadsheet just to understand the columns. I mean, do we have time to do that, or should we do that some other time?
Yeah, we can go through it very quickly. So this first column, of course, is the month or the year.
Thank you.
Then the
That's
next
helpful.
column, production, how many kilowatt hours for that month is being produced by the system. Just so you know, roughly, this is equal to 450 kilowatts times 13.5% times 8760. So in Massachusetts, on average, over the course of a year, a solar energy array is expected to produce electricity 13.5% of the time. But it varies by month because of how much sun there actually is. So that's why you can see in the summer, you get a lot more production, around 70,000 kilowatt hours versus the winter, when you might only get 20,000 in January. Because it's darker nights. That also clearly had some issues that month. They've had inverter issues. The fixed rate to the town is the next column. That's the 8.8 cents per kilowatt hour.
So what is that? What is that, Tanya? That is
That's our
Well-
contract price.
from National Grid, the
No, 8.8 cents is our contract price to the developer who produced
I
and
see.
owns the solar energy array.
so if we pay them 8.8 cents for every kilowatt hour they produce.
Correct.
Okay,
So if you take the first column times the second column, that's the payments to Cohasset Solar
Yeah.
LLC, our developer.
yeah,
That's owned by Palmer Capital. And then the next column is the net metering credit. That is the credit we get on our bill from National Grid for every kilowatt hour produced. That's the price.
so basically, we're consuming all the electricity that we're producing. And they're saying, in lieu of us supplying it to you, we're gonna give you a credit for 37.7 cents.
Yeah, we're not consuming it because it's on the landfill. There's no load. It just goes straight to National Grid system, so they
Oh.
buy it from us.
They buy it, okay, they simply buy it from us.
And they
Okay.
buy it from us at the net metering credit rate.
Oh, got it. And then something separate from this is just what we, do we have a contract with National Grid for what we pay them for what we consume?
For electricity, for what the town consumes for electricity, yes.
Yeah, and is it fixed, or is it something in the vicinity of 37.7 cents?
So it theoretically, the delivered price is around now 37.7 cents. In actuality, the town has a private retailer who is selling us power for something close to all in 20 cents.
Wow, great. Okay, thank you.
So the price that National Grid is paying us, this net metering credit, is from a prior program and is meant to reflect the delivered cost of electricity to the town under the town's rate. And then the net metering credit is this net metering credit rate times the production. And the difference, and then there are some other charges and credits from National Grid. And then the net benefits to the town is basically the credit minus these other charges, minus the price we paid to the developer. And that's where we get our net benefits to the town.
Tanya,
Yes.
I have to ask, has there
Yes.
been any progress on the inverter issue?
They're doing maintenance this month because they have been producing less. So I believe there has been no progress. Which is a bummer. Because we could be making more savings if they were not having inverter issues.
We're not able to put what we produce onto the grid because of inverter issues?
Correct. There are times where they cannot. They have to shut down the production at the solar energy array because they can't put it onto National Grid system. but they are staying within their contractual obligation. But it's been going on for 5 years and it's very annoying. But the good news is we have a 5-year-old landfill solar project that has the potential to save this town $100,000 in a 12-month period.
That's really awesome.
I know, and has saved the town $307,000 on its electricity bills so far today. And so this is why we keep trying to find new places to put solar, especially because we have an extension of the credits. And we can get direct payments, so we have more flexibility on how we approach this if we want, due to the Inflation Reduction Act. But what keeps foiling us is the most lucrative thing for the town to do is put it on town property to get the more lucrative municipal credit rate. And we just don't have good roofs or good locations to build out the solar for the town. So that's why we're looking at third-party sites like Stop and Shop, where we can get a guaranteed savings for the town, as well as have the solar physically located within town for future purposes, perhaps. And none of that prevents us from doing community aggregation.
Tanya, I was just this. I've not come across community aggregation before, so I've got other questions around that I'll save for another day. But is there any opportunity to do community aggregation type scheme for solar, so that actually instead of just Stop and Shop and town buildings, actually anyone can opt in?
Yep. So the community aggregation will differentiate between community solar and community aggregation quickly. And then I'd recommend you and Steve could take it offline
Yeah, no,
to talk about the community aggregation for sure.
Yes.
The community aggregation was at the time, it was part of the original electricity market restructuring in the 2000s, I believe. And
1997.
1997?
1997 was the
Okay.
Utility Restructuring Act.
Perfect. So 1997, and it allowed for towns that don't have municipal light companies to aggregate its customers and basically go out to bid for competitive retail. What some of those folks have done in the meantime was they sort of brought it back up. Nobody really did it for competitive retail purposes, but then they started thinking, well, let's do it for renewables. And so they sort of reintroduced it, and there's a whole process that has to be gone through, and that's where Steve can get you into the details and share with you what we've been doing for the past 3 years. But the town has to put together a plan. It has to be approved by the regulator, and that approval 3 years later was just done like a couple months ago. So we're now ready to go out to bid, but the problem is we've had these topsy-turvy prices, and our broker has been waiting, and then was going to go in November. Mystic said it was going to retire. The retailers freaked out, and now they're going out to bid on December, and that's why we're on the agenda for Tuesday. So that was just background to bring us back to the prior
Hey,
conversation.
Gordon, if you want to, and Steve, I wouldn't mind sort of joining Gordon in a tutorial, Steve, at some point, if you really want to sort of coordinate that rather than you telling us individually.
Yes, I don't mind asking the daft questions at all. I'm happy to be ignorant until educated.
Well,
Yeah,
if one of you
no,
wants to try to
exactly.
schedule a meeting with the three of us, that'd be great. I'd be
Yes.
very happy to do that.
Just watch your quorum if there are other members of this committee who
Oh,
would like
yeah,
to
we
get an
we
update.
cannot have a quorum, so no more than 3.
Yes, but Gordon doesn't count because he's not a member of the
Oh,
Alternative
okay.
Energy Committee right now. And then Gordon, the other option, which is still a possibility, and we're trying to figure out how, is community solar.
Yeah.
And you can do both community aggregation and community solar. So what community aggregation does is it gives you basically a competitive retailer product for everybody in the town unless the individual opts out. Community solar would give you these credits that we're talking about. So you could do a pure credit purchase. So for example, the solar energy array on the Stop and Shop could be a credit that people in town come together and say, we're going to buy the credit. And then they get the credit against their bill. So you can in a way, double dip.
Right, thank
Oh,
you.
that's great. That was a question, because I'm a community solar program. That was my question, so I can double dip. That's wonderful. Great.
So you should be able to double dip unless you have a competitive supplier. If you have a competitive supplier, then you'd have to cancel that contract if you can to be able to do community aggregation. So community aggregation really takes the customers off the default supply of National Grid.
Anybody else interested in the Steve tutorial? Montana, do you want to learn some about this? We can.
Sorry, can you repeat that for me?
Well, we're asking Steve to give a couple of us a tutorial on aggregation. And Gordon and I are going to do that. And since you're a new person, maybe you'd like to as well.
There's no reason I can't give it a try.
Great. Steve, I'll be in touch with you. Maybe we can get the word out. What's a good time for you?
Okay, very good.
Okay, marketing and social media. I think we already talked about this, Josh.
Yeah. So we talked about a little bit about it. One more, I was thinking about another session to do. I was watching, there was that Microgrid Mondays virtual thing that from a couple of years ago, and about nano grids, and we had a guy on named Dave Herman. He hadn't fully implemented his, and I was just thinking, watch that. Reach out to Dave. He's open to doing a follow-up and talk about the benefit that he was received. So he's got like a microgrid, nano grid with a generator, solar, battery. So just do a tour of his thing and talk about some of the benefits.
That'd be awesome. Actually, let's see if he wants to come speak to this committee.
Yeah.
That would be great. And, we should try to advertise it more because we have so many interesting things and we have so many interesting speakers, and sometimes we have an audience and sometimes we don't. The good news is we don't have hackers coming in and trying to say bad words, but it's sometimes.
Josh, can you say again who this guy is?
His name's David Herman. So if you on our site on the Cohasset,
He did one of those micro Monday things, but he didn't have a completed microgrid yet.
exactly.
Okay.
So it's from like maybe March 2021. So yeah, it's on the alternative energy site in Cohasset.org. It's got the link to, it's like Steve Girardi and somebody else. I'm trying to remember who it was. The other person on the select board. But yeah, so that could be another session we could set up and record for another social media post in the future.
Excellent. Okay, we are down to any matters not reasonably known in advance.
Going back to that, I know you're about to say call it, just one with the carbon baseline assessment. How do we get, where do we find, an update on kind of where we are with that? Because I know we've been talking about it for a couple of years, probably. I don't know.
So I have news on that. So Ginny Leclerc, if you remember, Ginny came and presented to us. She's been hired by, and I think we talked about this before, she's been hired by Hingham and Cohasset. And 1/3 of her time is going to be dedicated to Cohasset. And her portfolio includes looking at the potential for a climate action plan and providing, coordinating on the grant with respect to the carbon inventory baseline.
Okay, so do you know, does our grant expire?
I don't know, but let's make that an action item for Montana. So Montana, there's a climate inventory grant, but I think, Josh, it's not for the entire town. It's only for the municipality.
Okay.
But maybe it is for the entire town. I don't know. But there was some grant, and Montana, if you can find out what the status is for the next meeting.
That was the MAPC, right? The MAPC.
Was this in 2020?
No, I think it's more recently.
Yeah, so they were gonna do an they had this whole playbook and they were gonna help us do an assessment, right, of our carbon footprint in our town and the town buildings.
I will definitely look into that for us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, good.
By the way, Tanya, do we have contact information for Ginny? Could you get that in the minutes, maybe?
I think she doesn't start until Monday, is my understanding.
Okay,
And at that point, she should have I don't know what her official email is going to be.
So she'll be on. We'll have her on as a speaker at some, or just to introduce. I
Well,
guess.
we've had her come and speak. She's going to
Yeah.
be, I believe she's going to
Right.
be our official liaison. Okay. I would recommend, if you haven't, make sure that you are up to date on your ethics training. And you have to do the program, and then you have to submit the certificate to the town clerk, so it's on record. And that's very important because it talks about potential conflicts of interest tied to
Stop.
entities. Yeah, put yourself on mute, Montana.
I'm sorry, my cat was about to run out the
Mhm.
That's all right. So please make sure that you're up to date on your ethics training. I also received notice about open meeting law training. And so we're required to do both to understand what open meeting laws require, which is why we have a public venue, and you have to post your agenda more than 48 hours in advance and all sorts of things. So it's always good to refresh and make sure that we're not running into conflicts, because all the great work that we're doing could be tarnished if it looked like there was some type of conflict of interest. Even the appearance of a conflict of interest is not good. So if you aren't already certified, please get certified, and hopefully everybody is sworn in to be a member of this committee, because sometimes I have forgotten to get sworn in, but I am sworn in now, and I'm up to date on my ethics training, and I have to go get up to date on the open meeting laws. And that's it. Anything else not known?
Annual. Then annual.
Ethics is every 2 years.
Thank you.
I've done that. I haven't gotten any communication on the open meeting law. Is there a certification for that as well?
I will forward that around to everybody.
Great, thanks.
Hopefully the meeting did not come and go. It might have come and gone.
I went to some meeting on the open meeting law they had at the senior center last spring, I guess it was. I don't remember signing anything or getting any official recognition for having done that, but
Okay. I don't know if you need a certification like you do for the ethics. The ethics are very important. And Chris, you and I can talk offline, because you may need to file a 23B3. But we'll talk offline about that. And I have to, just full disclosure, I will be filing a 23B3 because Ginny had been employed by my company for the work we're doing for the Hingham Climate Action Plan. And she's now resigned from that position to be able to take the position with Hingham and Cohasset. But we were looking at whether or not there were ways to address the conflict of interest, but it just clearly created a conflict of interest, not just in appearance, but as far as the town was, the state laws were concerned, the appearance of a conflict of interest, as well as a potential conflict. And you can get around it by filing a 23B3 form that discloses the relationship, either current or past. But if it's a current relationship, you then have to say how you're going to make sure that there is no conflict, or you're not putting yourselves into a potential conflict position of conflict. So at the end of the day, Ginny had to resign from Energist in the role that she was doing for the Climate Action Plan for Hingham in order to take the position as a sustainability coordinator for Hingham and Cohasset. And so that's been part of the delay of her start date, but she's now scheduled to start, I believe, on Monday. And she's tendered her resignation, and I also terminated our master services agreement so as to stop all future, there's no future projects. We don't have an existing active contract in place. Okay, anything else? Woo, Gordon, we do these once a month. We try to do the second Thursday of the month at 7:30. We try to keep it within 2 hours. Sometimes it goes to 2.5. We'd like to bring in speakers. They usually speak for the first half hour. And as you can tell, we do lots of very exciting, interesting things. So
Oh, great.
hopefully
Thank
you're
you for letting me-
interested.
Thank you for
and
letting
we'll
me
want to keep
sit in.
attending.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, Gordon. Montana, thank you for joining us. And my amazing committee members, thank you for participating and being so passionate and amazing, because lots of exciting things are happening because of you all. And it is recognized by the town. So I will forward some of that stuff around, but at this point, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Josh. Second?
Second.
No discussion is needed, and we do not have to do a roll call vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
And this meeting is adjourned due to a unanimous vote. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And Gordon, we look forward to having you participate more.